I'm going to pass you over now to Laura McLeod from Laxdale Hall, and she's going to talk about their process, how they apply to the Community Ownership Fund, and a little bit as well about what happens kind of post-award, what that process looks like after that. So over to you, Laura.
Sorry, Felix, it wouldn't let me put my video on, so I've just unmuted myself, and this is even better. You don't get to see me. Yeah, so I've been volunteering with Laxdale Community Hall since 2015, and we applied to the fund late 2022. First put in the expression of interest then. Oh, that's my video. Dash, I thought I could sit here anonymously. So yeah, so we can just go on to the next slide, Felix. And so this is the hall. It's been in community ownership since 1947. So the existing board haven't quite been there since then, but they're long-standing members of the community. So I'm afraid I couldn't help anyone with the transferring of the asset, because, as I say, it was already owned. So that was one thing the board had going for them. Well used pre-pandemic. And then following the pandemic, everyone wanted to get back in and have their parties and community events. But unfortunately, that period of closure had really allowed damp to set in the facility. So the capital investment was vital to continue. So if next slide. Yeah, so as Felix has said, the management and strategic case is vital, but it's also a balancing act, because you need to show how, as you can see there, the damp there, the lack of access in the bottom right for accessibility, and the sort of dated community kitchen there that wasn't going to be viable for commercial community kitchen events and cook and share events and all weddings and revenue streams for the small social enterprise. You also need to show that it is still valued and used. So as you can see, that was a Queen's Jubilee party that was held just before the pandemic, and the community still really valued the facility. So it's about that that balance, making your case. Yeah, so you can go into the next slide. So we didn't do this alone in any way. So first of all, we applied to round 2 of the fund, and unheard of in the third sector, we actually got a response to say that it had been unsuccessful, but that it was the management case that the weaknesses were in, and we were given the link to contact details to link in with a support worker. Now, the board had also been successful with an application to Community Enterprise for the Pathfinder Accelerator Fund. So they had a development worker there, Ben Williams, that had helped them with the actual business plan, the original business plan. And then it was we were referred to Felix Biddle at DTAS, who then was able to highlight where the gaps were within the management case for the particular fund. And that, as I said, the board had been there, for many years, and we had said that within the management case. But what we hadn't done is bigged up their skills, their experience. We had one that was a financial advisor running a mortgage advisory service. We had another that worked in construction. We had another that was a secretary within a local construction firm. So it was really important that we were able to demonstrate the skills that were available on the board. Now, I myself, since the start of the project, went to work within the third sector myself, so I was able to link in with the TSI. Now, a lot of when I go to match funders, a lot of our match funders were with the local authority, had assisted with the county state funding that had been sitting there since 2021, and they had patiently waited for this capital fund to come in. Third Sector Hebrides had assisted with the Scottish Community Landfill Fund, and again they had waited, and the local wind farm, West Niles Development Trust, had also waited. So you know, where possible, I would advise groups to try and you know, gather match funding from their local sources who may be more sympathetic to the juggling act and may be able to see for themselves you know, what the issues have been, and they understand the community benefit because it's also benefiting their own communities. So that's, and then you can go on to the next slide, thanks. So yeah, so the process from the grant offer, then you're introduced to your UK government grant advisor. Now what was strange from that, they invite you to initial project meeting. Now the initial project meeting, you would assume that they have your whole application in front of them, but they actually don't. So this is where they are wanting you to go into detail more about the project. So I can go into that in the next slide. The important part is the starting your grant form and the grant form agreement. So starting your grant form, that will be where you detail your match funding, but also detail the stages of your project where the funds will be spent, and that's capital and revenue. And as mentioned, the revenue doesn't need to be match funded, so you could draw that down straight away, but the capital grant does need to be match funded. And back when we applied, we had to match fund for 50%, so it's fantastic now that it's been lowered to 20%. That I think that's really helpful to groups. And then there's the payment form where you have to again detail exactly what stage is built. For example, is it going to be the demolition of the existing building? Is it going to be the creation of, you know, a kitchen? Is it going to be new windows? Is it going to be, so they want to see a breakdown exactly. They don't expect when it then goes on to audit that these costs would match exactly, but just that you've done what you said you were going to do with the money as close as you could, and that you don't go off and do something else, like buy a minibus. There was the example that the grant advisor gave us that somebody then did with the funds. So I think we're ready for the next slide now, thanks. So yeah, this is what will happen in the initial planning meeting, and I don't think our grant advisor will mind us saying that you know, this can be quite a scary process for you know, some small charity boards, but they're there to help you. It is a bit of a grilling, but it is helpful in understanding what the milestones of your project will be, and that you are on target to do what you said you would do. Now, there's been a lot of talk about the match funding. Now, for our project, there was still match funding to be confirmed, and that is fine as long as you are open and transparent with the grant advisors as to when you expect these decisions to come through, and they will be able to draw down some of the capital grant for you, but not to the full sum. So your capital grant will only match the match funding that you have, and you get further opportunities to draw down. Within that payment form, you have another couple of opportunities to do that, but always with the caution that it has to be spent within the 12 months. And that's 12 months from offer letter, not 12 months of when you have your meeting or when you start your project. And it is very important that the work has not started before the initial planning meeting or before the COF grant has been awarded, because they cannot retrospectively fund anything. Someone mentioned VAT, and they did caution that be sure that that what you're doing is either zero rated or that you've included VAT, and you cannot claim back VAT. They say that you can't. It's like the government's giving with one hand and taking back with the other, but you can't claim back twice. So the procurement process as well. So there's guidance on the procurement that they expect you to follow, and you also have to have an anti-fraud policy in place. So again, speak to the My Community website. It'll have details on that, and also your local TSI or third sector support organisations. And then you also need the evidence of planning permission and warrant. And again, that doesn't necessarily have to be fully in place yet, but it has to be in place obviously before you start. As many projects maybe hadn't gone to that stage because they didn't know that the project would be feasible until they had that evidence. So, and if you can go to the next slide. So for us, the project must be completed by June 2024, and then there will be the audit, and the UK government auditors will be in touch to check that the monies have been spent where they should have been. I would recommend using some of your revenue funding for if it is a build project, for example, and some of your revenue funding to have an independent quantity surveyor. The board hired one of those, and the man has been worth his weight in gold by ensuring that the contractors have each stage detailed to the penny, and that they've managed to sense check some of the costings that have come through from the contractor. So within our project there was a development worker, again to deliver on the activities for the funding, so that revenue will be there for the first 6 months, and the next step is to extend that role. And hopefully it'll be open for summer 2024, and they'll be delivering on the planned community benefits. So I think that's me. You can see my contact details there. And thanks very much.
That was excellent. Thank you very much, Laura.